take a seat and grab a drink, because it's Gundam time!
He was a famous trumpet man from out Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was a top man at his craft, but then his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, a blowin' reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam.
Hiya! Penguin Truth here, just having a couple of drinks at the officers' hangout at the Antarctic headquarters, and I thought I'd review the final movie in the Gundam trilogy while I'm at it. It's nice to actually sit now and then, you know, and even I have to socialize on occasion. Anyway, let's dig into some Gundam, Japan's most successful toy commercial. Like many people of my generation, my first exposure to the Gundam franchise was the debut of Gundam Wing on Cartoon Network's Toonami block. And it seems like it hit at just the right time because it's always been the only noteworthy success for Gundam in North America. While that is disappointing to nobody more than Bandai themselves, it's not entirely surprising. It was groundbreaking in terms of what we were used to with giant robot cartoons, outside of arguably Robotech, full of politics and intrigue and complex moral dilemmas. And unlike the Universal Century timeline, it didn't come with a lot of continuity baggage or evoke ageism in its source. It appealed to both boys and girls and didn't give two damns who bought more merchandise.
Pilots will battle each other to stop her.
I'm asking if you guys are doing the right thing!
The endless waltz of war, peace, and revolution continues.
See for yourself just how powerless you are.
Roger that.
As I've stated before, the original Mobile Suit Gundam's rocky reception in North America can be attributed to many factors, but none so more relevant to this video as the failure to market the movie trilogy. Sure, it didn't help that it was pretty dated looking at the time it came out in the States, but it also didn't help that the English dubbed version was an absolute travesty, and Bandai Entertainment didn't bother redubbing it later when it had its ducks in a row, which meant that it was closed off to a lot of people. Instead, they tried marketing the original TV series. 42 episodes of This Is Too Old, What Else Is On? And that's a real shame, because what it lacks in flash, the original Gundam story absolutely blows away stuff like Wing and personality. And unlike Wing, it doesn't have to hammer you constantly with its message. That is never more clear than in the final movie of the trilogy, the climax of the 1-year war. At this point in the war between the Earth Federation and the Principality of Zeon, the Federal forces have started gaining ground on the enemy, with victories in taking Odessa in Europe and successfully defending their headquarters in Jabarao in South America. The White Base is assigned to decoy for the bulk of the Fed fleet, which is amassing to storm the Zeon space base of Solomon. However, Char Aznavour continues his pursuit of the ship and its crew, meeting back up with old subordinates in space where the White Base pilots are forced into immediate combat. Amuro has mixed emotions about being back in the Sea of Stars, but is excelling in piloting the Gundam. The White Base's diversionary tactics takes it to the neutral colonies of Side 6 to resupply only non-military essentials by law, while the Zeon wonder at its course and mission. Here there are some fateful encounters. Mirai, the pilot of the White Base itself, is reunited with her old flame and fiancé Cameron, but she bristles at his detached approach to life. And Amuro happens upon his father, who has gone mad from exposure to the vacuum of space. Amuro is dismayed that any chance of living an ordinary life with his parents together is now utterly hopeless and despairs, but soon he meets another important person in his life.
Why do you stare at me like that?
I don't know what you mean.
Amuro is instantly charmed by the girl Lala's free-spiritedness, but unfortunately he discovers she's a charge of his sworn enemy, our favorite Red Guard rogue. He has a close encounter with the masked man, but as far as Char knows, he's just an ordinary boy soldier and not the Gundam pilot. Anyway, Side 6 is neutral, so all that happens is Amuro is probably needing his pants changed. And not from the mud on them, but for the mud in them. While Amuro is having an emotional crisis, so does Mirai when Cameron volunteers to act as an escort out of Side 6 to ensure the safety of the White Base on their way out of neutral territory. She wants to reject the offer, feeling it's a late gesture, but the crew would be stupid to turn it down. The Zeon fleet has sent this real bastard named Konskun, who doesn't give a damn about respecting neutrality anyway. It's a good thing, then, that Amuro and the rest have gained a lot of skill because they just embarrass him. And then he's gone. I kinda feel like they included Konskun as a way of establishing that Char's failures in taking out the White Base aren't due to incompetence. The crew have just gotten that good. It's an interesting plot point that does its job well, and Konskun is delightfully undone without overselling it or overstaying his welcome. As for Amuro's dad, well...
It's too late when we die. Oh, when we die.
Man, the Ray family just cannot catch a break! We don't even ever see his mom again. You think she passed before Char's counterattack? Is it possible that she was still waiting for him to return? That's just a bummer thinking about it. Speaking of messed up families, Giranzabi is taking a pretty lackadaisical approach to the Federation's basically obvious next move of invading Solomon. But then he's not sitting in Solomon, Dozel is. Giran figures he can just send along the latest mobile armor prototype, but Dozel insists what he needs is numbers. The patriarch of the family, however, doesn't like how things have gotten away from him, and looks for a way to wrestle control from his megalomaniacal eldest son. After all the Side 6 hubbub, the White Base moseys on over to the Texas colony, a broken-down resort colony where Zeon activity has been detected. Actually, in the TV series, the Texas colony episodes don't happen until after the battle at Solomon, but in the movie it occurs before, while they're waiting to rendezvous with the main Federation fleet. That's not the only difference either, as in the TV show, Amuro encounters and duels with both Makuve and Char. In the movie, it's turned into a single trap and battle between Amuro and Char, where Amuro begins to sense Lala's presence. What does occur like the TV show, though, is that Sayla encounters Char, who again confirms that he is her brother Casval, who joins Zeon to get close to the Zabi family and avenge the death of their father, the founder of the Zeon cause, who is killed by Degwin Zabi. Sayla argues that, logically, that means he should be on the White Base's side since they're fighting the Zabis, but Char is determined to go his own path and doesn't want others getting in his way. Later, Bright calls in Sayla over a package Char left at the colony for her. It's a suitcase full of Marcellus Wallace's soul. Gold. It's full of gold and has a message to her, which she reads tearfully, wishing her brother wasn't such a douche. But then, Sayla's also kind of a terrible person and not nearly as cool as Char. I'll get to it.
It's not fair!
In the movie, since some of the Battle of Odessa was relegated to distant shots of moving vehicles and explosions, the Battle of Solomon here is the first large-scale offensive we see, with the Federal forces blasting at the Zeon with everything they have. It's more than just the White Base in the affair, and the Federation even has a brand new weapon, the Solar System, which focuses sunlight into a powerful beam to devastating effects on the Zeon base. And amongst the carnage, we get a few character moments for other characters. For instance, the very unlucky Hayato, that pumpkin-headed little dork jealous of Amuro, is nursemaided by Fraubo, who shifts her attention to him as her silver medal. He whines about being a terrible pilot, which he is, and Frau makes an excuse for his crappiness as being just in comparison to superhuman Amuro. Except that even Kai and Sailor are better than him, and I think probably Job John or one of the other never-seen crew members are better. But dude, you're a civilian. Be proud you've survived. I mean, just look at Slager. He's a real Fedi officer and pilot, gets Mirai all hot and bothered, and heads off completely doomed because he gives her his mother's keepsake. Sometimes the nail that stands up gets hammered down. It's too bad because despite being kind of a problematic throwback, Slager was a total bro. And again, I've always imagined him being voiced by John H. Benjamin.
Lynch, how are you?
Oh, hello, McGurk.
How you doing?
I'm fine.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. I didn't come up here just to talk to you and chat. You know, Lynch, it's funny, when I talk to you, I get a little uncomfortable because I feel like you're being condescending to me, and I hope that's not the case, because if it is, I'm going to kick your ass. And if it isn't, then let's clear it up right now. So, you could tell me whether you're being condescending to me whenever we speak, and if you say yes, I'm going to beat you up right here in the faculty lounge. And if you say no, I'm going to say fine.
Okay.
All right? You being condescending right now?
But anyway, Amuro finishes off Dozozabi in his Big Zam mobile armor with the Gundam's beam saber, and sees a strange apparition which I guess is Dozel's evilness? I don't know, Dozel seemed pretty okay for a Zeon commander, probably the least evil Zabi outside of Garma.
They're calling me.
It's probably time to start a real talk about new types. Folks, when it comes to Gundam, it is nigh inescapable. You cannot address Universal Century Gundam, and probably Gundam at large, without dealing with new types. They're even in shows they aren't in, if that makes sense. And what exactly are new types? Why, bullshit is what? Shiny bullshit that I honestly love. It isn't until the Texas Colony episodes in the TV show that we're properly introduced to the concept of new types, a new breed of human with ESP sensitivity, which appears to be how Yoshiyuki Tomino and Sunrise wanted to explain how a bunch of civilian children could so expertly operate sophisticated military equipment without, dying horribly every time. Well, okay, it's possible Tomino had new types on the mind while he was planning the show, an impression you might get when you watch the movies, because new types come up in the very first one. However, the TV show just drops new types onto us so suddenly, and it becomes super important only in the last few episodes, that if they were always intended to be in it, it's a testament to how slapdash the writing could be. Tomino said about new types that, speaking in modern terms, the first cognitive revolution occurred when Homo sapiens crossed the ocean, and I wanted to depict the second cognitive revolution by going into space. Somehow, though, that appears to involve a lot of trippy imagery, sparkles, and mobile suits that run on ghost power. If it's intended to evoke the New Age cosmic consciousness wave that was the zeitgeist of the late 70s, it certainly runs with the ball, blurring the line between the so-called real and super robot genre it's set out to differentiate from to begin with. When we start out with new types, we go from
Type? Can you explain the word?
Think of them this way. People with highly developed senses of intuition and perceptiveness.
to the tragic tale of Lala Soon, caught between Amuro's awakening and Char's ambitions, which ultimately dooms the poor girl and cements the war rivals as bitter arch-enemies for, well, the rest of the series. But let's get back to the plot, because there's treachery afoot. Daewon Zabi approves a project of Girin's that would convert a colony into a giant beam cannon, but after all that's happened in the war, he can see the writing on the wall and takes his ship to discuss a peace agreement with General Revel of the Federation. Girin uses the opportunity to get the two out of his way, which puts the Fedi fleet at a disadvantage. Still, the remaining fleet push forward to the last line of defense between themselves and the Zeon home colony at Side 3, the space fortress Abao Aku, named after a creature in Malay mythology. Giran comes to take command of it personally, and Cassilia brings Char, but she's suspicious about the disappearance of their father's ship. The curtain is then raised for the last act of the war. Long story short, everything explodes! Char's mobile suit explodes, the Gundam explodes, the White Base explodes, Otaku explodes, the war explodes! I sense you'd like a little more context. Doesn't take a new type to figure that one out. Well, while Amuro and Char search for each other on the battlefield, Cassilia inquires about the whereabouts of Sovereign Degwin. Giran is less than coy about their father's fate, confident that Cassilia will understand his reasoning. But she's a devout daddy's girl and blasts him, becoming the new ruler of Zeon by default. Unfortunately, Giran may have had the last laugh because the majority of Otaku's MS pilots are still student trainees, basically like the White Base crew when they began. Things start to look really bad for the Zeon cause. And things get personal between Amuro and Char in combat, with both blaming the other for Lala's demise. Even after both the Zeong and the Gundam are disabled, the two opponents take their duel well within the base where they fight with fencing foils, before Sayla interrupts them. Well, that and an explosion, which separates Amuro from the Daikun siblings. After which, Sayla seems to have zero interest in checking to see if Amuro is at all well or even alive, because she's a self-centered bitch who only cares about slobbing her brother's knob. For Haru's sake, it's ultimately Char who reminds her that Amuro is waiting before he jets off to finish whichever zombie happens to be left.
Well, Karma's waiting for you.
5, 4,
Here's hoping you enjoy a happy reunion.
2,
Shaw isn't dead? Oh my god!
Sayla acts like she just came out of anesthesia when she remembers, oh yeah, I was fighting a war, wasn't I? What a dope. While Amuro is trying to work the surviving core fighter in the base of the Gundam and leading everyone out with his mind powers, she's just stumbling around blindly like the waste of life she is. Sayla, you are the worst character in this series. Worse than Hayato. But in Sayla's defense, she actually shows some concern when it appears Amuro isn't going to make it out of the exploding fortress. Fortunately, the Brat Trio make themselves useful.
Come on in! We're waiting for you! 4, 3, 2, 1, and fire!
Anyhoozle, the crew of the White Base is reunited, and it feels so good. The Principality of Zeon is now forced to the negotiations table, and the war is effectively over. But tell that to the Delaz fleet, and the Axis Zeon, and that clone of Giran, and the sleeves, and so that ends the Mobile Suit Gundam movie trilogy. I may have skipped a couple of details, but I think I encompass what it's about both in plot and themes. Basically, it's the war-induced emerging of a new humanity, the labor pains of evolution and such. Though, yeah, evolution doesn't work that way. Since most Gundam entries are long runners, my choices for reviewing grow shorter every time I do a new video on the franchise, so the chances aren't great that I'll cover another title this year. I do encourage you to purchase some Gundam anime from the right stuff, though, because they've been re-releasing various Gundam titles. It's a franchise that runs the gamut from spectacular to good to forgettable to lame to dreck. So find out what kind of series you're looking for out of it and make your choices accordingly. But it doesn't hurt to start where it all began, or at least in the movies that streamlined it. Next time on Otaku Evolution is the start of Dezaki month, until this presence. I have not felt it in some time. It's...
Here, Shaw sent me this gold to try and convince me that I should leave the war. I'm donating it to the Federation for use by